Welcome to Real Estate Live, where your questions get answered. We get to the point with the hot topics that everyone is talking about 3 times a week at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on YouTube and Facebook Live. I'm your host, Andrew Finney with King Realty Group in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Today's hot topic is about recession shapes, specifically the V curve. What are we looking at, and what kind of a recession are we in right now? To tell us more about this, we got 2 rock star agents that actually own one of the biggest brokerages in Miami-Dade, Florida, Jorge and Dinorah Guerra of Real Estate Salesforce in Miami, Florida. So why don't we go ahead and bring them on and start this conversation in right away, answering your questions. If you want to hit us up in the comments, ask your questions. If for some reason we miss it, drop us a line in the comment section below, and we'll go ahead and make it happen for you. So let's bring up Jorge and Dinorah. Hold on. There we go. Now we got sound.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Hi there.
Hi. Well, thank you for joining us today. So the other day when we were chatting with Dinorah, or I was chatting with Dinorah, thank you, by the way, for taking the call. It was an amazing and illuminating conversation. She was saying some stuff and I was like, wow, I had no idea whenever I was reaching out to you guys just how powerful you really were. And then I was doing my vetting and my research before I called her. You guys totally blow away the market in Miami-Dade with over 450 agents and a growing brokerage, very active in your state and local board, extremely knowledgeable, even on the international stage. Obviously, being, in Miami, you get a lot of international clients, as we were talking about a moment ago, Jorge. But one of the things that Dinorah had said to me, she's like, well, Jorge and I have been talking, and we really think that we're probably going to see kind of what's called a V-curve recession, right? Or recovery, if you will. So I dug deep and I did a lot of research on it. And it's something I was talking about over the past month or so without really having a name for it. So Dinorah, thank you for that. So why don't we get in with the different types of recession shapes? And before we do that, I'm going to go to a screen share. And the reason being is there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of salacious commentary out there, like this Yahoo Finance article that says, hey, you know what? An economist is saying the coronavirus recession is turning into the Great Depression 2 amid the jobless spike, right? So you hear that. And when we hear that, it's like a punch to the gut. It's like, what the crap? And where are we at right now? What do you think when you see this kind of stuff? Because to me, it's kind of like clickbait.
Exactly. Fake news, clickbait, combination of both. You know what? I think today news is competing for screen real estate, and whatever title they need to get, to get the eyes, they're willing to do. And obviously, death and destruction is top of people's views.
That's a great point. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because that's something that we talk a lot about in the live stream is I don't believe in fear mongering. And maybe if I use clickbait or something like that, then maybe I'd have more views. But at the end of the day, I have to ask myself, why am I making live streams? Why am I doing this? And what is my channel about? It's darn sure not for clickbait. It's darn sure not for fear mongering. What it is about is transparency and having the discussion. Because by virtue of having a conversation about the hot topics of the day, we can balance everything. Because if I were to ask you, how many sides of a coin are there? What would you say?
Dino.
Two sides.
2 sides, right? And that's common logic to a lot of people. But I tell you, there's 3. There's 3 sides to a coin. You have one side that can be an extreme in one direction. You have the other side that can be an extreme in the opposite direction. But the side in the middle is the side that gets overlooked. And therein lies the truth of an overall situation. That's what these live streams are about. This is what this topic is about. And that's what my whole channel stands for, is the truth and integrity in the process. And hopefully one day, people will take notice of it and continue growing our community. But that said, what's not fake news and what is real are these jobless claims that are going on out there. 26 million as of just yesterday that had been filed, right? And whenever we see these numbers and we hear this stuff, it's scary stuff. And we have to address that one side of the coin that says, hey, the world is falling down around us. And we also have to address the opposite side of the coin that says, hey, it's not so bad. It's all gravy. We're going to be okay. But then we have to balance it with the middle. Because one of the things whenever I see these jobless claims is, okay, how many people are furloughed right now? How many people are going back to work after that? And that brings up the topic of the day about first understanding what are recession shapes. And how many are there? Well, we have a V-shaped recession, as Dinorah was sharing with me over the weekend, a U-shaped recession, a W-shaped recession, and an L-shaped recession. So, Dinorah, whenever it comes to V-shaped recession, what do you think about those in specific?
Well, Andrew, first of all, thank you again for inviting us here to today. But I think that we're in a better shape in the real estate industry than we were back in 2007. So I am confident that we're going to have a strong recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But I do see that the longer the economy is closed, the harder the recovery will be.
Mm-hmm. That's a great.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. So with the V-shaped recession, and for everybody watching right now, by the way, obviously this is off of Wikipedia. Wikipedia, Google, two of my favorite places to go all the time, right? And I am a contributor of to Wikipedia to keep them alive. So hey, shameless plug there. It's only like $9 a month for all that great information that comes at you like anytime you want it. But that said, in a V-shaped recession right there, it's telling you the economy suffers a sharp but brief period of economic decline where we are right now today, and with a clearly defined trough, followed by a strong recovery. So back to your point and back to those jobless claims, Dinorah, if everybody that is furloughed and we start seeing these hashtag stay in home movement, stay in place, stay in home, starting to lift when it's safe to do so, right? Then all those people that have been furloughed are going to go back to work.
Right.
And when they go back to work, then we're going to see as sharp of an incline on unemployment. We're going to see an equally sharp drop, in my humble opinion, if everything plays out. Now, you said something a moment ago that said, well, it depends, Andrew, on how long this takes place, right? So what are you seeing in the Miami market as far as people that are out of work or the overall situation right now?
Well, as I was saying, that the longer that we have a duration of unemployment, there's going to be a reduction in spending.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where it's going to take us a little longer to recover. However, right now, I can speak for George and myself. We're supporting our local restaurants for starters. Where I'm really not a fan of cooking, and George isn't a fan of my cooking either. But so we've just resorted to every day we'll go ahead and support one of our local restaurants.
Yeah, Andrew, let me tell you what I see. I see that right before we had this COVID incident, we were roaring, we were strong, we had a strong foundation. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind that the fundamentals of real estate were really strong, way different than what it was in the last recession when we had a subprime mortgage issue, a bunch of issues there. What I see post COVID, okay, is I see a slow start. I see a cautious start. I see us changing some of the habits we had in the past in order to, be able to function in this new reality. COVID isn't going to go away. There's talks that it's going to come back possibly in the winter or not. I think that us realtors, we are the most innovative. We are the most resourceful players out there. So we're going to figure out a way, sooner than later on how to have a safe showing. We're gonna invest more in our video technology and make sure that we're showing property from a safe distance. We're gonna really spend a lot of more time qualifying our clients. I think from an economic perspective, the ones that got hit the hardest, like restaurants, hotels, and service industry, I think they're going to be a little bit slower to recover just because of the spacing. I think restaurants that had 50 people are not going to have 20 people. So I see a slower of a curve recovery in that section. But being in South Florida my whole entire life, I know how resilient we are. I know how resilient our economy is. I know the people, we just don't sit back. I think the real question is, how smart are we post-COVID? How are we going to function in that environment safely and learn how to make the economy go? Because one thing that we know for sure is that sitting here at home isn't going to get us anywhere. That definitely we had to slow it down, respect, the government officials, give the healthcare workers an opportunity to get in front of this virus. But, the world needs to keep on. In Miami, we are considered an essential business. You know, we're like fire, we're like police, we're like grocery workers. You know, we are moving in healthcare workers, police officers, firemen. You know, we have people that were caught in the middle of transactions with families, school teachers. So you know what? I see a very strong quick recovery in most sectors out there. Those that can get back to work, I think, are going to go back to work very smartly. I see the service, restaurant, and hotel industry slowly getting back, but figuring out ways to, you know, to get business going. You know, here in the US, we're entrepreneurs. You know, we figure things out. So you know what? When I remember the last recession, all the ingenuity, all the creativity, and all the new stuff that happened, you know, I'm really looking forward to what comes out of this. You know, what new innovations, what forced innovations are we going to use? And again, you know, the American spirit isn't one to sit down. We're going to get back, and we're going to get back quick. Back to you.
Well, Jorge, I really appreciate your insights, my friend. And you're absolutely right. And, you know, we were talking about a lot of different things before we came on, in addition to the shapes. And, you know, I have fully ready to go on screen share and everything, right? Like, boom, a whole list of the amount of recessions since the dawn of our republic, right? Since the dawn of the United States. And I think that you said something a moment ago that's extremely interesting, because we got to remember, when was YouTube founded? We were talking about that briefly too. YouTube.
2006, 2005, maybe 2004.
No, 2005, 2006 was the era.
Maybe incorporated 2004, but actually launched maybe 2005, 2006.
And became actually known as something in 2006. But then we had, on the precipice of that, right? We had what has been euphemistically called, and at least in my opinion, the Great Recession, that kicked off in like 2008 to 2009, right? And the reason that I think this is important is to what you said. The American economy, the average American, us as people do not stand by, and we are not idle in the face of adversity. We might take a blow. We might get knocked down to our knees. We might get knocked down to the ground, but we will rise again, and we will rise up smarter and stronger and better by virtue of learning that we're stronger and better together than we are not. And the reason I think that's important, and why I wanted to highlight YouTube, because guess where we're streaming on right now? YouTube. Guess where else we're streaming right now? Facebook. And Facebook was founded after YouTube. It was founded in the midst of the Great Recession. So when we talk about innovation, when we talk about the resiliency of the American population as a country, as a culture, and how we come together, I think that that point is massively important to share and to promote, because we are stronger and better together than we are not. This is an opportunity. This is a wake-up call, in my opinion, to say, hey, you know what? We got knocked down. This crap sucks. This is real. This is deadly. So how do we come together at this time to make sure that we make smart decisions? How do we come together at this time to make sure that we band together? And then more importantly is, once this crisis is over, because life always goes on, let's face it, we will get through this and nothing lasts forever, right? Then we need to stay together, and we need to continue ushering in together, in my opinion, a new era. And that era being one of innovation and enlightenment, one of seeking understanding of each other, and one of coming together by focusing on what makes us alike and using that as a foundation to grow upon as we bridge the differences between us, because doing so will see us on to a better day. Now, let's go ahead and get back into the econ talk. So we have the V-shaped recession, which we talked about, and thank you for your points. But let's take in the full perspective of everything, right? Because the devil's in the details, and you got to play devil's advocate to understand the two sides of the coin to form the truth. Well, we also have this thing called a U-shaped recession. And a U-shaped recession, going back to Dinorah's point, that depending on what industry that somebody finds themselves in, I think we're going to see V's. And I think we're going to see a little bit of all of these, frankly. And that's why I thought it was important to share this with everybody, with the most predominant one, ideally the V shape, which is a quick down, quick up, right? And I think that'll probably be true of a lot of cases. But then you're going to get the businesses that get affected by a U-shaped recession, which states that a U-shaped recession is longer than a V-shaped recession and has a less clearly defined trough. The GDP, gross domestic product, may shrink for several quarters and only slowly return to trend growth. And then says Simon Johnson, a former chief economist of the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, says a U-shaped recession is like a bathtub. You go in, you stay in, the sides are slippery. You know, maybe there's something bumpy stuff in the bottom, but you don't come out of the bathtub for a long time. So And to that point, when you were talking about specifically like restaurants and hospitality, now what's really interesting between those two industries is one of them we have to have. Last time I checked, as humans, we need shelter, we need food, we need water, and we need a place to stay, right? Well, if you already have a place to stay, then we still need food and water, right? What do restaurants provide? Nourishment.
You know what? I'm going to argue grocery stores are going to absorb the majority of that food outtake.
Okay, and that's a great point, and I think that you're absolutely right, and I think that though the restaurants will maybe not necessarily see the V, but the U. I don't think they'll be at the bottom for very long, because once consumers feel more comfortable and we as people say, hey, you know what, I think the worst is behind us. We're seeing a sharp decline in the amount of new coronavirus cases. We're seeing more people returning to work, and we see more healthy people out there.
Now that I think about it, you forgot to add the D curve, and the D curve is the Dinorah curve, which is people are going to be sick and tired of cooking, and they're going to want to go out there and make sure the restaurants don't go down, and they're going to go out there and support America and make sure that while they're in this bathtub, that they're going to make sure the water's low enough where they can still breathe. So,
oh my God!
So I think the D effect might level off the restaurant and the service industry, just because us guys, we're going to want to take our girls out, special occasions, events, and make it special. And when we go there, we're going to understand that we got to spend some bucks to make sure that we get that red carpet treatment when the going gets good again.
I love it. I love it. So we were talking about actually like shapes and geeking out and nerding out over here. And then you're like, hey, you know what? What about the D curve, the Dinorah curve? For those wives that don't like to cook and everything else, or those significant others that don't like to cook, and we need to support businesses and stuff. I love it. So you heard it here first. Jorge Guerra come up with the D curve.
I saw you jump to Google. I thought you were going to rush to Google the D curve. And I was like, let me tell them what the D curve is.
That's good stuff. So when we're talking about like these different recessions, going back to this U shape, I think that to your point, yes, with a D curve combined U curve, if you will, we'll start seeing a lot of businesses that are probably going to experience a little bit of a prolonged trough, depending on what industry it's in. Like we were talking about hospitality in specific. I know that the mayor here in Vegas would like to open up the Strip. I'm not convinced that's a smart idea. What I think is a smart.
I saw her on CNN. With Anderson Cooper going back and forth. Anderson trying to put words in her mouth. She trying to stay, one way. It was back and forth.
I don't think it's wise to open up the casinos, frankly. I think what it's smarter to do is, in our city, we have a large population. And I think what we should need to do is focus on our local economy first. Open up the small businesses, open up the mid-sized businesses, and let's test and make sure everybody here is healthy. Because like Florida, Las Vegas has a lot of similarities in international traffic and the amount of people that come in. If you have situations where they say they lift stay-at-home orders in certain areas, right, but not other areas because it's not yet passed or not yet run its course off what they believe the peak to be, right? And you get people traveling internationally or even nationally to Florida or let's say the casinos and conventions here in Vegas, then what you can see is another spike. Because you have people coming in that are sick or don't know that they're sick and they're carriers. And if that's the case, then you devastate those local economies by virtue of allowing that to happen. That's why I disagree. And I think that first and foremost, we need to support the local economy, going back to the D curve, like supporting your local restaurants there in Miami and making that happen. Yeah, the D curve. So we got something new here, the D curve. I wasn't prepared for that one, Jorge. You should have given a brother a heads up. So then you get into like a W curve, right? And a W curve is also known as a double dip recession. So this is where some people are getting concerned with economists saying, okay, what happens if we have like this V curve and it looks like a V curve? Is it really a W if this comes back in the fall or if it comes back early next year? And it's worth the consideration and the thought to have that and to have the conversation, because by exposing all three sides of this coin, we can have a productive conversation. And it's not about trying to scare someone in as much as it's about to prepare someone. And if we know what the best case, worst case situation is, then we know how to move forward. I mean, one of my favorite things, and tell me if you've ever used this one, Jorge Dinorah, with your clients, when clients start getting a little, shall we say, animated, because some clients are a little bit more animated than others, right? Mm-hmm. And I say, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? They're like, well, Andrew, my house doesn't sell, or, I lose the house if I'm a buyer and blah, blah, blah. I said, that's not the worst thing that could happen. That's not at all. Well, what's the worst thing that could happen? I said, you walk out the door and someone shoots you. That's the worst thing that happens. You die. But at that point, then real estate's like not a big deal, right? And I said, what's the best thing that could happen? Well, I get the house, or, my house sells and it sells for more than it's worth. No, that's not the best thing that could happen either. The best thing that happens is that Warren Buffett decides you're his kid and wills you all of his money and all of his businesses. And now you're like, do anything you want and can form so many worthwhile employment opportunities by virtue of those kind of resources. That's the best thing. So everything else in between, going back to every coin has three sides, the truth resides in the middle, is workable and solvable. So when we look at that with a W shape, and when we look at this conversation today, and we're considering all of the fear mongering, the misinformation that's out there, the salacious news, the clickbait and everything, that's what this is about with live streaming with top agents, in your case, massively successful brokerage owners of brokerage, real estate sales force, over 450 agents in Miami. Absolutely amazing to get your insights, and such a blessing and opportunity to have y'all join us today. So it's about the truth. It's all about the truth. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Have you ever used that one with clients? Best and worst case situation.
No, but listen, I love what you're doing. Real estate is a reputation business, and definitely growing your reputation with the truth, going out there and not sugarcoating it is definitely the way to grow a real business. So I think you're every step you're making, you're doing the right thing.
Well, thank you for that, and I definitely appreciate that. So then we bring in the last of the devil in the detail here, which is the L-shaped recession. Now, the L-shaped recession is the one that hurts. This is the one that really hurts. So an L-shaped recession is essentially, or a depression, kind of like what we saw in the 2008, 2009 cycle, when the economy has a severe recession. It's not return to a trend line of growth for many years, if ever. The steep drop or degrowth is followed by a flat line that makes it the shape of an L. The most severe of the different shapes of recession is the L-shaped recession. And that's where I think it's important to take stock of that. And whenever I was looking at some different information about like a list of recessions and what happened, I was also reading an article, here it is, in like Forbes. And I thought Forbes, and this specific author, Susie Tyarian, I might be killing her name and it's completely unintentional, but she listed out businesses. And this is what I thought was really cool. She gave examples of specific businesses of specific industries that she thought might experience different types of recessionary curves, because it's not so much about one size fits all when we're talking about recession recovery, to Dinorah's point, and to what you were sharing with us earlier, Jorge. It's about industries, right? So she was mentioning, hey, Netflix is pretty much seeing a V curve as an initial drop, but then a very sharp bounce back. And she was using their stock market performance as proof. And then she was talking about slower recovery, giving an example of a Home Depot that saw a sharp decline, but then a slow kind of that trough in that tub, right? Going up, going down, going up, going down, going up, but returning to a balance point, right? Yeah. And then the one that she said that would probably be hit the hardest, going back to hospitality, in this case, Royal Caribbean on ships, right?
Yeah.
Might take a lot longer to come out of, given consumer thought, consumer behavior, and the considerations that are at play at that time. So I think this is really important to highlight to everyone that really wants to have a meaningful conversation about this. And lastly, I don't know that if I linked this one in the show more description, but Jorge and I were talking about this. Here's a list of the recessions in the United States. You really want to know what goes down in these United States and how resilient the American culture is, and how well prepared we are for everything, and getting to the point of like entrepreneurial mindset and taking care of things. Go over here to Wikipedia's list of recessions. There have been 47 recessions in the United States since essentially the dawn of our country. 47, right? So what was cool though, if we bring it current, the Great Depression onward, where most of us are living, the oldest of us would probably have partook or known of the Great Depression very personally and intimately, right? So when we look in that though, you can see just since that time, you have a Great Depression. It shows you the years that it was taking place, how long it was. It also shows you right here the time since the previous recession or depression. And it also shows you peak unemployment and the peak GDP declining, again, GDP being gross domestic product. Then you can go all the way current, as opposed to giving everybody a history lesson here. If you want to nerd out on it like I do, then hey, the link will be down below for you. But then we go into 2007, 2009. That was what's in most of our mind's eye. And the reason that I like talking about this is that we have alive right now we have baby boomers, right? We have some that are a little bit older, but then a lot of Gen X, a lot of millennials, and an up and coming Gen Z. Well, when we look specifically at the life experiences of Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X, what is the hardest hitting depression/recession most of us have known in our own life? It's the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So when we think the economy going down, we automatically assume it's always like that, when it's just not the case. Yeah. And that goes back to the transparency and the integrity of recognizing three sides of the coin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's see if we have some questions coming in today. Pug Love in April. Actually, I see Meseret right here. Meseret, thank you so much. And now I know, after our conversation on the phone yesterday, ma'am, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure that you're here, ma'am. So I'm sure you're laughing on your other side over there. So Meseret actually hit me up yesterday on the phone, and she's working with one of the loan officers here because she's here in Vegas and looking to get her home loan. And even though she's furloughed right now, she is making meaningful steps to making sure she's ready to go when she does have the opportunity to return to work and gets her first month of pay stubs at that time. Meseret, thank you so much. Pug Love in April. Love you long time. Always great to see you, Pug Love in April. And thank you for checking out the Hernandez family's reality show last night, The Real Estate, The Untold Stories. Hope you enjoyed learning about the home loan application process and seeing it unfold in real time. Kathy Martinelli, hello and good morning. Looking forward to everyone's input. Kathy, we would love your input too. And if you'd like to join us on screen, again, very simple to do. In the description below is a link so you can come up, and it would be great to have you on screen with us. And looking forward to answering any questions that people have here. So Pal Chris says, good morning. Good morning, Pal Chris. Kathy talks about the three sides, right? Three sides of the coin. Lindora Brown, good morning, Andrew and guests. Very informative real estate education as always. Love, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you for joining us as well. And then we have, again, I don't even know how to say one of these. Does this, all the same, thank you for being here. And says, hi, Andrew, I'm a big fan of your videos. Thank you. You might want to check out Real Estate Salesforce too. They have a lot of videos. We were talking about that. And let me show you exactly what they have going on here, because Jorge and I were chatting about their YouTube channel. They've been doing YouTube since 2006, right, Jorge?
Yeah. Since before, when you had to upload it to an FTP site and create a podcast and distribute it through Apple, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. But listen, when I first got a camera, I bought the wrong camera. I bought a Mac, and there was no YouTube. We had the FTP, and we had to put a video player on our website back in the day.
That is so interesting. See, at that time period, I was still very much active duty, and who knows where I was during that time. But I didn't even know what a YouTube was back then. You know, to be honest with you, I had just started hearing about something called MySpace, and I didn't even know what that was. So, you know, all of this stuff was changing around me while I was gone or whatever. So it's amazing that you not only were building your practice back then, but you were so innovative and forward thinking to know, hey, video is important, and you've grown with the platform. So that's what I thought was really cool. When we went through your videos earlier, you have a lot of call outs to your agent showing more about them. I mean, kind of like a mini docuseries, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then a lot of gorgeous home tours. So if people really want to know what real estate looks like, in addition to your amazing website, Real Estate Salesforce, then obviously you have a lot of videos of the listings that you guys represent. There's a lot of really cool information on this website as well as links to your social profiles. And I thought this was cool whenever we go to meet you, the broker.
There you go.
International keynote speaker. So this goes back to the conversation with Dinorah, and I was like, oh my God, this is like so freaking awesome to have the opportunity and blessing to come live with you all. I was like, oh my God, this is like real estate celebrity over there. It's almost like I'm talking to Ryan Serhant or somebody. I was like, but it's I was reading, and I was like, you know, this is so impressive. Like your life, every life has a story, and watching your life and having an opportunity to read about your experiences and how you've grown, back to your comment earlier about entrepreneurial mindset and stuff. I mean, What is your biggest passion? Why did you choose real estate with all of your talents? Why did you choose to get into real estate, Jorge?
You know what? My wife asks me that all the time.
Yeah.
You know what? I think there's no clear answer to that. I think the real estate gods dragged me, in this direction without me knowing, and they gave me confidence. They gave me direction, and they gave me passion for the industry. And for me, my wife knows this more than anybody. I don't do this for the money. I do this for the passion. I really enjoy what I do. I jump out of bed every morning, enjoying talking to people, creating deals, putting deals together, teaching agents how to practice in today's environment. I like getting in front of people and teaching. I think from a training perspective, I love to say this. The closest I come to giving birth is getting a new licensee, training and getting out there and sort of practice. And real estate, the commissions are awesome, but what we do for people, what we do for our community, I couldn't have asked for a better, to land in a better position than where I have landed, to be honest with you.
I think that's a great point, and I love everything that you said, Dinorah. So why did you get into real estate? If you actually ask Jorge, then let's put you on the spot here. Why did you get into real estate, Dinorah?
You know what, Andrew?
Feeding with the boss.
Funny enough, love got me into real estate.
Love? Did you say love got you into real estate?
Yes.
Yeah. It wasn't her
Okay.
cooking.
No, love got me into real estate. Despite being a second generation realtor, it was when I met George, and I was coming from more of the corporate side. I was in the marketing and advertising. I was, my last position was a publisher for a big national magazine. And you know what? It was at that point when he was already carving himself into his path. And I thought I had something to, contribute. And together we kind of found that we brought out the best in each other. And we've been working, side by side for 15 years now, I guess.
Wow. So it was Jorge that brought you in, and the love of togetherness. So like he said, it wasn't your cooking. So that was the D curve to add a little bit of comedy on today, right? I'd love that. We're gonna have to market that for you. You said you're a marketing specialist, Dinorah, so D curve, right? The D
I
curve.
wrote it down. That was a good one. But
So-
George has good ones.
So I think it's absolutely amazing with everything that you guys do and what you guys are doing and the passion that you have. And, you said something a moment ago, Jorge, that I think that every top performing agent that I've ever spoken to, including like what's within me, it's not the commission, it's the people. It's the ability to see how buying or selling a home transforms somebody's life. And that's where like all of the passion that comes into the real estate, the untold stories, the reality show. I didn't know if it would be a success, not a success, or it's still too early to tell probably, but it was showing real estate in the best of my ability to video. Like you said, you've been doing video for what, 12, 15 years or, a long time. So it's out of the sheer passion of just, trying to grow your skill and showcase what's most meaningful. That's what the real estate, the untold stories is about. And is every life has a story. And it goes to your point, Jorge, about the sheer passion and the sheer thing that we see as agents and how buying a home changes a person's life and how much more confidence they get and how much better they're off in the future and how real estate done right with the right people, with the right team can advance your life and set you forward. And at the same time, doing it wrong can set you back. So I really admire you and Dinorah and your passion.
Yeah, thank you.
Dinorah, you're so lucky you met me. So lucky.
I remind myself every day of that. Yes, yes.
So lucky.
That's so funny. That's so funny. So Hugo G, thank you for joining in, Hugo. Hugo says, good afternoon. My tenant has been paying on time. Should I contact him to see how he is doing?
Absolutely. I think I think now more than ever, you're going to want to reach out and see how they're doing. I think some straight conversation. Number one, it'll let you know if you're going to get the phone call later this month that next month ain't coming. Number two, I think a phone call during these times of quarantine are welcome, regardless of who it is, especially if you're calling just to see how you're doing. And as a matter of fact, quite the contrary. If I'm your tenant and you call me to see how I'm doing, I'm gonna feel terrible if I'm gonna stiff you on rent. Chances are I'm gonna pay you just because of the quality of your character. So I would definitely call.
Absolutely. Dinorah, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I think that it will go a long way. And especially now where they, my fear and us having, different investment properties is that they, really don't have, I mean, there's, again, with the whole stimulus, and what's going on, they don't really have to, they're protected. So,
yeah. You know what, I'll share this, our one of our landlords, proactively reached out to us for one of our offices and gave us a 25% discount without asking.
Really?
Yeah, he called and said, hey, you guys are gonna go through some bad times. Right off the bat, I'm giving you a discount, and you better believe I'm paying him. Minus 25%, I'm paying him. Thank you for that. And yeah, and he's gonna get my check.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna remember that when the lease signing comes up again, any future business. How cool was it that he called me and he offered me something that I didn't ask for? I thought that was super cool.
Those are great points. So Hugo, the moral of the story at the end of the day is, yes, most definitely reach out to the tenant that's been paying on time. Reach out to all your tenants, depending on how many you have. But at the same time, reach out to every one of them, Hugo, would be my suggestion. And do just as Jorge and Dinorah shared, just by virtue of picking out the phone and making a simple call. How are you doing? Is everything okay? Is there something I could do to help? Working with them on the rent if needed. This goes back to what we were sharing earlier in the stream about coming together and being stronger and better together than we are not. It's about understanding where we are in life and that we're all experiencing challenges and helping each other on to a better day. And it's that simple call like Jorge's landlord made to him that was so impactful. Like the calls that he and Dinorah would make to probably their tenants as well, obviously, just to say hi and check in. It shows the personal connection that is too often missing in today's technology-driven age. Technology is here to help and support and to connect, but not to replace.
Got it.
Absolutely.
So Hugo G says, thank you very much, guys. Awesome advice. I am following from Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, thank you for joining us from North Carolina. Not too far away, maybe a day trip, right? To Florida over there. So.
Yeah, well, Florida is a pretty long drive from Miami.
Remember, we're in the tip. We're in the tip. So
yeah,
you're at the tip, the peninsula, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's gonna be great. I haven't been to Miami. I've been a lot of places, but I haven't been to Miami. It's always been, I guess it's on my bucket list. I've always wanted to go and check it out, but I haven't.
Andrew, you haven't lived. You haven't lived.
Well, I tell you what, now that we got new friends over there, if I'm headed that way, I'll give you a heads up and see if we could link up and meet up in person, because that'd be brilliant.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
You won't be the first.
It wouldn't be the first. It won't be the last. You guys are amazing. So Kathy Martinelli says, I've seen both sides of the positive and negative aspect of it. And it's so true about how wonderful things can be when you get with the right people. Absolutely. Any thoughts, Dinorah, Jorge?
You know what? Let me share this with you. And,
yes,
I love what she's put with the right people. And one thing that I'm going to add after this post, COVID environment is that the value of a realtor, I think, is going to go up a lot. I think people are going to search for real professionals moving forward. I think no longer people are going to say, let me trust my cousin with a license. I think they're going to go look for real movers and shakers, people with a team that's going to go out there, that's going to be able to inspect, close, and do what's necessary to move a transaction. So definitely, negative or positive, I think working with the right people is going to get you where you need to be. And again, I think there's going to be a bigger push on, professionalism and a bigger push on working with the right people.
Mm-hmm. Dinorah?
We've been advocating as far as to our agents that now more than ever is when you should partner up with your lender, with your title, and maybe together you can do something bigger, better, like what you say, Andrew. So definitely, team up and see how you can help each other.
I think those are great points. And I think that going back to like your YouTube channel and the stuff that you guys do right here on the very top right here, and you have an entire playlist dedicated to this as well, is showcasing your agents. So when you talk about partnering up, not only from a consumer point of view with a real estate agent, you actually partner up to your agents and you help support them and guide them during this time. And I think that's so powerful. And it goes back to what Hugo was saying about a tenant. And I think the real message underneath that is just human compassion, empathy, and connection. And you guys are doing this day in, day out as a practice. And I think it's an inspiration to, or hopefully is an inspiration, not only to everyone that's watching that's a consumer, because my YouTube channel is basically caters to consumer education and real estate, right? But I've also found, I don't know, probably at least 1,000 of the subscribers on my channel are probably real estate agents. So from the amount of people that comment about being agents and stuff. And I think that if somebody's watching this either in the live or after the fact, and they want to see what a true brokerage operates like, looks like, and the best practices to take, I think you guys are shining examples of that, frankly, with everything that you've gone through and overcome the challenges and adversity that you have to grow. It's so hard to be a real estate agent, and a successful one is even harder. So getting into brokerage and climbing up the totem pole, so to speak, you know, doing what you got to do to grow a brokerage to over 450 agents and one of the most well-respected brokerages in Miami.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Well, I mean, it's trial and error and passion. So it's a mix of a lot of different, you know, ingredients that it takes. But
she's my secret sauce.
That's awesome. So I really appreciate that. So yes, it is about everything that you said with the right people and coming together. So I love it. Again, my friend, I wish that you would tell me how to say this, but I'm going to try like UE Bert F. Bertie F. I don't know. I know there's a story behind that moniker, and I would love to know what that story is because I have no idea. And I love acronyms, and I'm always making ones up. So I would love to know. Anyways, our friend says, "Hi, Andrew. I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts. I am on contract to buy my first home, but unfortunately, I got laid off from my job due to coronavirus. Do you think I should proceed with the buy or should I not?" Jorge Dinorah?
So, you know what? Great question. And I'm going to be honest with you. It really depends on certain aspects, but I'll share with you like your coin, you know, a couple sides of it. One side for me would be sort of the responsible one, which is I don't want to get into debt I can't afford and not be able to pay something off. So you know what, maybe it's time, you know, to put on my pants and call mom and dad or call a friend or roommate and it's time to buckle up and prepare myself for my redemption. Number two, I know that lenders are doing spot checks on unemployment the day of, but if by any chance you can get away with it, okay, you know, I think back to 2008 and I asked myself this: would I have wanted to be a homeowner in 2008 or would I have wanted to be a renter in 2008? And I know that I most probably wanted to be a homeowner just because of the delay and the way the banks were working with people. And in a lot of situations, you know, home ownership was saved during that time. Mm-hmm. You know, and I know that if I was a tenant, or let me rephrase it, I know a lot of people that if they were tenants at that time, they would have been living in the streets. You know, they didn't have enough income, they didn't have enough money to make it. So you know what? Those are my two coins there. You know, and my third coin would be, you know what? You know, I'm going to bank on American resiliency and I'm going to bank on the fact that I'm not going to give up. So when I get that loan, I'm going to Uber Eats, you know, I'm going to sell door by door, you know, Girl Scout cookies. But you know what? I'm going to pay that mortgage with whatever I got to do, however I got to do it.
Strong hustle story there.
Yeah.
It's important to look at the interest rates. So yes, of course, depending on what price range you're getting yourself into, if it's too much of a stretch, you know, then maybe, of course, you'd want to, you know, reconsider. But if you think that this is, you know, the home of your dreams, you're getting a good deal, you have to look at the interest rates. They're so low that, you know what, the day of tomorrow, it may not be as low. And I don't, you know, honestly, I don't see that this crisis will convert into a significant drop in home sales. So you're going to be pretty much in the same place, a year from now, let's just say. And so you have to think about, is this an opportunity that you want to pass by? And if you're allowed to, meaning if you're able to even move forward, I would do it.
Let me add one more to that. One other factor that I would consider would be, would I be able to stabilize the asset if I don't move in there? Would I be able to rent it and be able to hold it, until I'm ready? That would be my other thought when purchasing.
Okay, fantastic. And I appreciate those points of view. So at the end of the day, I'll share mine. And mine always comes back down to job security. If you've been laid off, and if it's a difference between being a layoff and a furlough, right? A layoff, you may or may not ever come back. But a furlough, it's kind of the expectation that you will. I think before you get yourself into buying a home, I think there's the common sense approach which says, hey, if you don't have the job security, stay out of the market. That's my humble opinion, because if you do real estate and you get into it and you can't pay it, and there is opportunity, to Jorge's point though, that you could, in his words, stabilize the asset. There are opportunities in that regard, that if you could figure it out and you are confident that you can make that happen, there's a silver lining there. And there's definitely an opportunity there, because getting into real estate will provide you with security. But it's, how do you get into real estate? And is a timing right to get into real estate? And that's where you got to ask yourself and revisit. And I believe Dinorah was saying it, and Jorge said it in as much, as essentially getting in touch with the reasons why you're buying, recognizing, to Dinorah's point, the opportunity that exists now with the interest rates and where we're at, because every situation that is tense, every situation in life that has an up and a down always has an opposite and equal reaction, right? So it's about recognizing what the opportunity is. Now, I do know in conversations of streaming live on Monday and Wednesdays with Bill Marin, the loan officer here in Vegas with me, that largely, if you're getting a home loan and you've been laid off or furloughed, you're not going to be able to get a loan. Period. So it's a complete non-starter. And that's why I let in, at least sharing a few different of my thoughts on this, is evaluate your job security. Now, to Dinorah and Jorge's point, if you are going to be coming back, or if you are able to pick up and do a side hustle, or you get a job as an essential worker during this time, and the lender's going to be able to work with you, really consider it and think about what you're doing, and consider if it's going to be something that you want to do. Because at the end of the day, it really comes down to what you're comfortable with. And to me, and I believe Dinorah and Jorge as well, might agree or have a thought on this, is about doing what you're comfortable and confident with doing at the time that's right for you in your life, essentially. But recognize and balance it out with what Jorge shared, which is the hustle. Recognize and balance it out with what Dinorah said, which is the opportunity. And then balance it out with, a couple of my thoughts on the matter, which is evaluate your holistic point of view from job security. Is it doable? Is it not doable? But recognize it all. And it really starts with, like Simon Sinek says, start with why. And get in touch with your reasons why. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fantastic. So great question. Definitely appreciate it. Pal Chris says, hi, Andrew. I have learned a lot from your videos. Thank you. In the process of buying a primary home in New Jersey, had a few questions regarding the same. I have a 20% down plus closing costs, which will get me a better interest rate on my mortgage. 1, 15% down in PMI having reserves for the next 6 months. 2, 20% down and having reserves for the next 1 month. Now, I would love to glean insight from all of your vast experience and the thousands of people you've assisted.
So you know what? When it comes to financing and low interest rates, I'd want to get as much money on my side as possible. So I'd want to put as little down as possible and use the rest of the money to buy myself a duplex or an investment property. And start growing my cash flow somewhere else. Dinorah, you? She might be more conservative than me. 20% down, no worries.
You see, I'm more of like, well, if it's going to save me from having to pay a PMI, I'm going to go with 20% down. So I guess it's just going to depend on, I look at overall, if I'm going to be saving, or I'm going to have money now, cash in hand. But so I guess it's just, it depends on what you're able to float, for the next couple of months, and what kind of job security you have. I
wouldn't be chasing a better interest rate. Keep in mind that I don't know the person who's asking the question how old they are, but remember we're 7 to 9 years at a certain residence. I'm curious to see if they're married, if they have kids, if they're at the end of their their job cycle. So a lot of factors happen. I think the real question is, are you going to be there 30 years or 15 years? If you're going to be there that long, then you might be a little bit more interest rate sensitive. But if you're going to be there in the shorter term, 7 to 10 years, then I wouldn't be chasing that interest rate drop that much.
Those are great points, and I think that they're really interesting considerations. And I see why you guys work so well together as both husband and wife, and brokerage owners, and just partners in general. You have that balance. And Jorge, you're saying a lot of things that a lot of like people that got that entrepreneur spirit and got the I was going to use military slang here, G2, the intel, right? You got the moxie to go out and get it. That's certainly one way of doing it and leveraging. It's almost like a very Grant Cardone type approach of sorts, and a very, I've heard so many different people, like even bigger pockets, would say that leverage the dollar, leverage it, invest it, because it's going to suck in the short term. But would you rather shovel some crap for the next 3 to 5 years and make it work so that you can benefit from the pasture of greenness and nourishment in the future? And putting it in with the time in while you're young is what I'm hearing. And when I consider the facts of the situation of just who you are, Jorge and Dinorah, right? Brokerage owners of one of the biggest brokerages in Miami. Then I can see where you have the balance. And, Jorge is like, push, grow. Let's do this. But you're smart about it. And Dinorah is like, well, Jorge, sweetheart, we also need to make sure we can cover this standpoint. And that's where I think that harmony and unity come. And, just from this interaction right here is just something I'm seeing. I mean, would that be kind of accurate? Because it's kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
you know what? You got to fail fast. You got to fail often. And,
yes.
and I've never been scared to pay tuition to get there.
That's true. And you got to fail upward. You got to learn from every failure, right? And we got to, like you said, fail fast, fail often, and fail upward, always moving towards the end goal, because there is no success in the comfort zone. You got to move out of that comfort zone and get that education. And whether it's real life education, like you said, paying the tuition to the dean of the School of Hard Knocks, right?
No.
or whatever else it may be with course training and everything. I love it. Yeah, that is so inspiring. So Kyle Walker, locked in at a 2.75% rate, but the bank is being so tight on everything. We have to prove that we can pay 3 to 6 months of expenses. Luckily we can. And now they want us to pay off our $8,000 car loan. Is that normal?
Well, Kyle, welcome to the reason why we're not going into a real estate recession. Our fundamentals are strong. No more subprime mortgage. No more leveraging. Today the bank really wants to make sure that you really qualify. And I think what the bank wants to make sure is that we don't see another 2008 where people lost their housing. So I expect that to be the norm, and expect that to even get stricter. So Kyle, lock it in. Find the evidence and lock it before they ask you for your DNA.
So yeah, Kyle's been joining us on a lot of live streams since the very beginning, and Kyle, definitely appreciate you joining us today, my friend. I think that everything that Jorge just said is spot on. You need to do what you got to do, and just for reference, there's 2 things that he said I think we need to track back on that are extremely important just from an education standpoint. But let's touch on the one that when you ask, is this normal to pay off stuff? Okay. Because I'm sure that with the thousands of families that they've assisted in, being Dinorah and Jorge and their team over there in Miami, we've seen this before, and we saw it without coronavirus, and we've seen it without a recession. It just depends on everybody's individual economic position. I mean, what does that debt to income ratio look like? What is your overall economic and financial position? I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. So if a lender is saying you need to pay off your 8K car loan, it has something to do with your debt to income ratios. I mean, 99% out of 100 certainty on that. It has everything to do with your debt to income ratio with tightening lending requirements, as we've heard and as we live streamed about previously with JP Chase, or JP Morgan Chase, whatever they want to call themselves these days, right? The big banks essentially. That have tightened up and gone into like 700 plus credit scores, 20% down requirements. But then you get lenders like Bill Marin and New American Funding, and probably the lenders that also Jorge and Dinorah work with that are more local, more regional sized, or even mid-sized across the United States, that can absolutely lend still down to a 620 and still provide you with the best of rates. So Overall, is it normal? It really depends on the situation. It sounds like to me this isn't anything different. The only thing different is that you would have to have the bank reserves. But even then, in my mind's eye, will come up into play, how much is this house? Is this a specific loan type? Is it like a physician's loan? Is it a jumbo loan? You know, because certain one of those loans require reserves. Anyways, I just helped a physician last year close on their house, and a really wonderful family. And guess what? They had to have 12-month reserves for their physician's loan. It just is what it is. So and that was well before coronavirus, obviously, right? So it's something to take stock of. So that's one, right? The second thing is when we're starting to understand, and the thing that comes up in every stream, and I think it's really important to keep hitting it hard, is the truth of the situation about why we're not in a 2007, 2009 territory. It goes back to what Jorge just said with the tightening lending requirements, because the lender is verifying your income, assets, credit, and verifying your employment, as he said earlier to one of our viewers about their lenders still spot checking right to the day of closing, right? It's because of the changes with Dodd-Frank and everything that was implemented in 2012 underneath the Obama era that you also have a lot of changes and tightening of regulation and practices that go into making sure that we have, as Jorge says, subprime mortgages, right? Essentially, there are no stated income, stated asset loans. There are no income, no asset type loans. There is none of that taking place since the collapse in that 2007, 2009 timeframe. What we do see is tightening lending requirements and this notion of DTI, debt to income ratio, and the ability to repay your loan. So when we put it and we look at the situation as totality and we bring it into context and we remember that every coin has three sides, it helps us balance out the middle of the truth about the reasons why. And that's why I was so excited when Dinorah said the V curve to me the other day, and that we're having a conversation today about the different types of recession shapes, because the truth is in the middle of everything. But when we look at mortgage and we look at real estate in specific, we have to see where we've been, the changes that were implemented, and where we are today. A lot of people are not forecasting the real estate market to be hit anywhere close to 2008 levels, right? That's the reality. And it's not something that's just like Andrew Finney saying this, or Jorge Guerra, or Dinorah Guerra, right? How many other top agents from around the country have you seen on these live streams that are making the same observations about their local real estate market? Hence why we're doing this 3 times a week. And when you hear the same thing coming from different points of view, different background, different education, different levels of real estate experience, Dinorah and Jorge definitely being the biggest of which to this point with a brokerage of over 450 agents. But when you're hearing it, you can't be stupid and have a brokerage that big. That's not by accident. You have to be extremely smart, and you have to know how to read the economy and how to read the market and know what the heck is going on. So when you have Jorge and Dinorah saying that to you right now, we need to take it with a grain of salt and realize the truth in the situation. It's exactly what I'd be doing, because if they thought there was going to be a downfall, my guess is from their integrity and the conversations we've had before we went live today over the last week, they would tell you, because I don't think they want to see you get hurt any more than I do or any other top-notch agent really wants to see anybody get hurt. Would that be correct, Dinorah?
Listen, this is a reputation business, and during the good and the bad, it starts out to tell the truth. When I train people, I tell people we're doctors. We're not salesmen. We're here to look at what's going on and give them an honest diagnosis on what's going on, whether it's going bad, whether it's going good. The truth is the only thing they're looking for.
I think that's a great point. Dinorah, do you have any thoughts?
Oh, I was just looking at George.
So to what he said, and it's everything, reputation business, right? And I love that you make the analogy of like a doctor. I think that's brilliant, because that's why I call myself a trusted real estate advisor. And some people get it confused, unfortunately. Well, does that mean you're a realtor? Yes, I'm technically a realtor. Does that mean you're a real estate salesperson? Technically, yes. But I call myself a trusted real estate advisor because of one reason and one reason alone. I never approach anything for the sell. I approach it based upon the person. I approach it to why I like Jorge's example so well about being a doctor. Yeah, because you're assessing a situation and providing you with the information necessary to make a well-informed decision.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. And by the way, I heard you say, George, am I killing this? Am I like, it's just my thing? Because if I'm killing things, you got to let me know. And I wish I would have known like an hour ago.
Listen, she calls me Jorge. She calls me George. It all depends what she wants. How she wants.
Oh, so that means she wants something after the live stream because she's called you both during this one, right?
Quite possibly. But you know what? One thing that I've learned is, an experienced consumer knows when you're trying to sell them.
Yes.
And what they want is they want to know the truth. And how you manage their expectations will determine their opinion of you at the end. So from the very beginning, I love to tell people the truth. Let me tell you where we're at. Let me tell you what we can do. Let me tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes, very much like the stock market, you got to tell somebody, you're negative. You bought it bad. You're upside down. You're gonna have to. My commission's gonna have to come out of your pocket. And agents don't like that. They like to oversell. But when you oversell, you lose your reputation.
Absolutely the truth in so many ways. Absolutely. Thank you for those tremendous insights. So Paul, Chris, back to, I'm sorry, I skipped. Addie, thank you for being here. Addie said, and this was going back to Pal Chris's questions, I'm sure, was saying, always keep money for rainy days. The situation could happen anyway with the coronavirus or not. Every owner or investor needs to save money. I do agree with that. And it goes into having an emergency fund. And I believe that everybody should build one up. It's not easy, depending on what your financial income levels are, necessary to build one up. But with discipline and with practice, as all other good things come with discipline and practice, we're able to save up an emergency fund so that if more Americans had like a 3 to 6 month reserve right now, I don't think we would see so many people clamoring to get the CARES Act money and needing a stimulus check. I was the first one. Well, I'm not going to say I was the first one because I'm sure that I wasn't. But one of the first live streams that I made when we started hearing this notion of stimulus checks, I said, I don't want one. I don't need it. Don't want it. Don't care to have it. Come to find out I couldn't get it anyways. But that being said, I didn't want it for the sheer vantage point that I knew that I've been working for years of my life. I'm almost 40 years old. And before I was a real estate agent, I was a Marine, right? So I've been through up and down. I've been bankrupt. I've been knocked down by life. And I've paid my tuition, as Jorge like to say.
And a PhD in finance right there. And
you learn the hard way or an easy way. But as long as you learn and we fell upwards, that's what counts. So I knew I was in a position that as long as the thing doesn't go on for years and years and years, I'd be okay. Right. And even then it's about pivoting and working smart, to what Jorge and Dinorah was saying earlier in the stream about agents are so entrepreneurial, so innovative, and so wanting to be helpful and everything. But I think the moral of the story is that coming out of this, I hope that a lot more people take stock of what they do with their money. And if they're wondering where they can save, and every buyer that I've represented, if I've had a financial conversation with them about savings plans and stuff like that to help them grow, and I'm sure Dinorah and Jorge have had the same, I can find hundreds of dollars that are spent on the most frivolous of endeavors, from overspending on things that you don't need, that you haven't even used, that you haven't even taken it out of the package yet, to going out and eating fast food every single night. Whenever if you don't like to cook and you can get a microwave meal, and it'd be cheaper than the $10 combo.
Careful, you're going to affect the D curve.
Yeah, I'm not trying to affect the D curve, by the way, but I am trying to affect the asset curve, the A curve, right? The asset curve of helping people get into their E curve, their emergency fund. So, I think it's important that we learn our lessons, hopefully sooner in life than later. And that if more Americans had the reserves and had saved for, I think that's where it's so important to take stock of, and I'm going to pop it up real quick right here, where we have this great recession time frame. And then right here in the middle on this list of recessions, the 47 in the United States on Wikipedia. And they're calling this now the Great Lockdown, which I think is pretty brilliant. I didn't even know we had a name for it until I popped up good old Wikipedia to tell me. And then we see that for 10 years and 9 months is the time that they're saying since the last recession that it's been, right? So what have we been doing as Americans for the last 10 years and 9 months if we haven't been trying to build ourselves up and improve our lives based upon the lessons that hopefully were learned back then, right? Now, obviously, real estate and mortgage have learned a lesson. And obviously, there is no subprime, and there is none of that going on in our market, right? Obviously, lenders learned their lesson because you're seeing tightening lending requirements across the board. It just depends on how tight they are, right? But tightening nonetheless. So what have Americans been doing for 10 years, if not trying to save a little bit of money here and there? And I think that's where it's time to get crystal clear and take personal responsibility and personal accountability. And I'm sure there's be somebody that hates me for saying it, but I am a firm believer in personal accountability and personal responsibility, because without it comes no change for the better.
Agreed, 100%.
Awesome. Paul Chris said, by the way, 36 years old.
Yeah.
Back to your question that you wanted to know how long and how old they were in the situation. So 36 years old when they were asking about the 20% down, and you were giving the story of hustle. And, you know, at 36, you're still a very young person.
You got a lot of hustle in you at 36.
There you have
You
it.
know what hustle you
But you're
have.
only like 25, Jorge. So, I mean, cut us some slack here, right? You were doing videos at 10 years old. I mean, let's be honest. You started a brokerage when you were 10.
19.
Oh, God, that's amazing. Amazing. Kevin Straker says, can I get my earned money deposit back from the builder if the bank denied the loan 3 days before closing because I lost my job?
I'm sure you can. I'm sure that I can't see a judge ruling against that. And I'm sure the developer resold that unit or will resell that unit and get their money back. They might hold that money in escrow until they sell the unit. But I think if my first question would be is, did you use the developer's lender, preferred lender? Because maybe that might have been a contingency on your deposit. And if you did, you know, I would imagine you'd be able to get your deposit back. Get yourself a good attorney, or have your agent reach out to his attorney, and your agent's attorney should be fighting for your deposit.
So all this talk of attorney, Florida, an attorney state? Not an attorney state.
Not an attorney state.
Not an attorney state. So just straight up making sure that you get the right parties at play if it's needed, right? So
Yeah.
Kevin, what comes across my mind is here in Las Vegas, Nevada, at least in the state of Nevada, we have contracts with the very specific contingencies, and financial qualification is one of the big ones. So if you're financially disqualified and cannot perform on the note, it's its own contingency. So, I mean, how can you be expected to pay if you lost your job? So in such a case, it's an automatic return of the earnest money deposit. And anybody that, in my humble opinion, that would try to keep a buyer's earnest money deposit if they truly lost their job is putting some seriously bad mojo into the universe, and it's seriously going to come back to rock them in all the wrong ways in the future.
You know?
So my first thought is talk to your real estate agent, talk to your loan officer, and check the terms of your contract. And then to Jorge's point, if it needs to go deeper, then bone up and do what needs to happen with real estate attorneys if necessary to get them involved, because I'm not a judge whatsoever, and I'm not an attorney whatsoever, but I agree wholeheartedly with what Jorge said. I don't think a judge is going to say, oh, you had to buy this home when you couldn't pay for it. Come on. There's common sense here. So
you know what? According to that one sentence, okay, you got to imagine that they did everything they could to buy the house, and at the end of the day, it was either act of God, or, you know, call it what you want, but, you know, Kevin's intention was to buy the house, and it was unforeseen circumstances. So I can't imagine a judge, you know, giving that earnest deposit to the developer because of default.
Great.
And I'm sure that contract was also contingent on financing.
Always contingent on financing unless it was cash, right? Yeah. So Kathy Martinelli says, lots of laughs at your DNA reference. So that's good. Pal Chris said, and this would be really interesting from your experience, how do I calculate DTI, debt to income ratio, when I have an investment property that I have claimed as a $2,400 loss on my last year tax returns?
Oh, listen, you got to pay to play the IRS, man. You got to pay.
Okay. That's pretty straightforward there. AJF1, thank you so much for being here, my friend. Definitely been checking in on Monday. We were live with Jesse Dow and Addie Net from Portland, Oregon. Also another YouTuber, by the way, Jorge and Dinorah, living in Portland. Pretty cool channel over there. And then you have AJF1 that says, if you get a better rate quote from a second lender, should you go back to the first one or jump to that better offer? How many rate quotes is too many?
So you know what? I'm a big fan of working with your team. So I'll give you an example. You know, AJF, my first question is, do you have a badass real estate professional that you're working with? And if you are, Why are you jumping around? You should really ask him who's his guy in the inside, who is his connection, and the reason why it's way beyond the rate. It's about the service, it's about the coordination, it's about the appraising, it's about knowing the industry, knowing the market. So you know what? I would find one, and yeah, it's great business savviness to go out there and get another quote, but go back to the original one and make sure you work together.
Fantastic.
Any thoughts on you?
I tell my clients, go to your bank, and then here's my preferred lender, and usually. So if I were you, I would go back to my first one and let them know this is what I got. And then, maybe it's that they're able to figure something out, help you with the appraisal. I mean, there's other ways that they can offer something, but yeah, I'm more of that team approach because there's so much more than just the rate.
Let me add one more thing, and I always say this, when you go to your bank, it was probably a teller that just got upgraded into a loan officer. He took a 6-week course, and he's putting papers together. Lending is like a complicated puzzle. It takes years of experience, it takes knowledge and investment, and you're going to want to go to a professional, someone who's skilled and knows how to put different pieces together that can benefit your client. So again, get a second opinion. But I'd rather pay even a little bit more to make sure that I don't have any problem whatsoever. So again, you're working with a good real estate professional. Hopefully, he should be holding your hand and guiding you through this. You shouldn't be going out there finding a lender you don't know. The industry, us realtors have been in the industry 15, 20, 30 years. We know who knows what they're doing. So lean on your realtor first would be my advice.
I think those are really sage wisdom and great points. And I feel the same way about the team approach. I mean, with everybody that I work with, obviously a buyer has choice of who they choose. Mm-hmm. But to your point a moment ago is one of the most critical is an agent with experience, at least over 100, 150 closings, know who performs and who doesn't. Because it's been an observation, and please correct me if I'm mistaken, that roughly a third of all transactions in a healthy market will blow apart. Number one reason, financing. A lender didn't do their JOB. And that's very concerning. So when you're talking about working with the right team that knows who can make things happen and who is probably best, has a little bit of a mixed review, because those normally will be weeded out pretty quick in our business. But at the same time, when you're looking at a second lender going back on the first one and the quote and everything else, look, how many rate quotes? Anybody can quote you a rate, AJF. That's the reality. Anyone can quote you a rate. Did they do a full income, asset, credit, and employment verification? Did they do a true pre-approval situation to better understand your financial situation? Because if the answer is no, it's worthless. It's worthless. Just my thoughts.
I second that.
Okay. Cool. Any final parting shots you want to go? We've been streaming for just over an hour. Definitely appreciate your time out of Miami today. So that will put us at about 1 p.m. over there on a Friday for y'all. Yeah. So anything that you would like to share as we wrap this live stream up today?
You know what? Thank you for the invite. It was a pleasure getting to know you. Your YouTube channel rocks. I'm gonna look at it, copy it, get some ideas from it. So you know what, as big as you say we are, we're always learning, and what I love about this situation is connecting with people like you, getting golden nuggets from everywhere we go. And I love what you're doing, because you create a catalyst for this golden nugget information. So again, I want to thank you again for bringing us along. And Dino, anything you want to add to it?
I want to leave on a positive note, and honestly, I am optimistic. Being part, having a brokerage, and at the same time being an agent, where our sales, they're just getting deferred. Yes, for those, depending if you were furloughed or if you were laid off. Again, sales are deferred to maybe the end of the year, maybe next year, maybe the following. But so I'm still optimistic, and right now is the time just to check in with our neighbors, check in with our clients, check in with our friends, our tenants, our landlords, everyone. And I think that we are, this has changed us, but we need to, pick what we want to keep from this new era in time, and, I'm sure that at least in our office, now that we've converted all virtual, we're going to be doing a lot more of these Zooms where we can have a lot more meetings. But we're still going to, obviously go back and revert back to the in-person, because there's nothing like that as well. again, I'm optimistic and looking forward to, passing, this chapter.
Fantastic. It's been a great pleasure streaming with you guys today. I just want to say, my brand new friends out of Miami-Dade, you guys are welcome back anytime you'd like to come. And I'm happy to help you with anything that you may have questions about with your YouTube channel. Going back to the mantra of stronger and better together, I do want to share with you, and I shared with you before we were live, and this is something I cannot say as my own, but it's something that I absolutely adore. And it came from Sean Cannell, which is hashtag your vibe attracts your tribe. And that is so powerful to me, that when you think about that, your vibe attracts your tribe. So I'm happy to help not only obviously consumers, people that are buying and selling, make sense of things, but also other real estate agents. And if there's something that I know that can help, then that's what this is about. It's about level shifting the industry into a more professional caliber, to what you said during this stream, which is that people are going to start really looking for top-notch people and looking for the right team. So whatever I can do to support you guys, and whatever I can support our community here on YouTube, on my channel, we're a community, we're a tribe. We just got to find a good name for our tribe, but our vibe is definitely there. So let's name our tribe, since we already got the vibe. So everybody, thank you for joining in today. It's been a pleasure. And please, when you go out there today, and as we go into the weekend, I'd like to leave you with a final thought. We make the world a better place one day at a time and one smile at a time. So if you'd be so kind, please go out there today and be the reason that someone smiles. All right. We'll see you back on Monday at 9 a.m. where we'll be talking about wire fraud.
Bye-bye.